December 13, 2016 meeting of the Brattleboro Selectboard to order. Has the meeting been officially warned?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. We're here tonight for a series of budget presentations. We have our standard agenda, which begins with chair's remarks, but I don't have any chair's remarks to give. Town manager, do you have any comments?
Very briefly, just Public Works did a great job with the in-storm cleanup effort and is now into the post-storm cleanup effort. So I just want to remind everybody that
Move your cars.
move your cars. The snow removal operation will be in full force downtown tonight and spreading out into the entrances to town, and they expect that also will continue tomorrow night. With the amount of snow and the amount of melt we've had, it is expected it'll only take two nights this time.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is select board comments and committee reports. Do we have any select board comments or committee reports? Dick?
I just wanted to follow up on what Peter was saying. Actually, I thought the town and the new shoveling of the walkways. I was downtown quite a bit yesterday, and they were all cleaned, and whoever did, I didn't even see them do it, but
Right.
whoever did it did a nice job. And the other thing I wanted to raise was the ordinance says your sidewalks need to be cleaned within 24 hours of a
I
storm.
believe that's correct, yes.
Is that something that we should revisit? I know that there's a couple of places, even today, haven't shoveled their sidewalks, and I wouldn't mind looking at that and shortening that window up a little bit. I know that's an ordinance change that
Right.
probably wouldn't have much of an impact this year, but,
Sure.
we need to make sure that we're getting these sidewalks cleared off. And I think that these properties that I've seen aren't cleaning their sidewalks at all, so that the time limit might be moot with them, and we might have to go to another measure. But I would like to take a look at that.
It's been my experience during the first couple storms of the year that sometimes some businesses don't do what they need, and we tend to send out our enforcer to go talk to businesses who react well generally. It's been my experience with some nice reminders. All right, well, so we'll look at it, and we'll also, if you let us know which businesses, Dick, we'll follow through.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other select board comments, committee reports?
Just real quickly, we had a Spirited Waste District meeting, and I guess I'll touch more on it probably next week in our regular meeting. I don't know if we need to go into anything right now.
I think that's right. Be on the
Yeah.
agenda, I believe.
And it's going to be on the agenda. Yep, good.
Any other comments? Next item on the agenda is public participation. If there's anybody in attendance who wants to speak to something that's not on the agenda, this would be a good time. All right, and then we have a series of budget presentations. So the first one's from the town manager.
So the revenues for the town manager's office begin on page 1 at the very beginning of the document, and the expenditures begin on page 4. It's a very small budget. We have 3 items of revenue and only a handful of expenditure items. The revenues we're proposing to be the same as last year. There's the in lieu of taxes number, which is very stable. Miscellaneous revenue, which is just that, a small trickling in of small revenues. Investment income is the only one that we're proposing to change, and we're only adjusting that down slightly from $7,000 to $6,000 because interest rates are staying painfully low. Pleasurably low if you're borrowing, but painfully low for this account. So that's the revenues. And then if you turn to page 4, at the bottom of the page is the department's expenditure budget. We have very few expenses in the budget other than the 3 of us, the personnel expenses for the 3 of us who work together there. The salary items are changing very little and by normal increments. The reason you see a larger change in the vacation buyback is simply when we're forecasting who might buy back time in a given year, and you got a very small staff, a very small budget. A little change, $2,000 in this case, is a large percentage change. So That's our presentation.
Anybody
Not
have
much to talk about in the town manager's office budget.
Anybody have any questions about the town manager's budget? Maybe you can just tell us, what is investment capital?
That's investment.
Well, I mean, it says investment income,
Yes, investment income.
so what's the capital? I mean, what money is there?
That's the idle funds of the town. So basically the balances that we carry, they're held in a commingled fund. They earn money market interest rates, which are, bare minimum right now. This is the general fund's share of that. The utility fund does a little better. The parking fund does noticeably worse because it is distributed by the finance department in accordance with the proportions of the funds that are invested.
I have a question. When you folks do like permits for people to be on the street selling stuff, does that money come to
Right.
you guys, or who does it go to? Parade permits
It
and all
goes
that
to a
stuff?
miscellaneous finance account.
So miscellaneous revenue?
Is that this miscellaneous revenue
Yeah.
account? Okay, yeah, so that's for the
Okay.
open air permits and the parade.
But that's
permits,
for
those
you,
sorts of things.
but that's under your budget.
Right, but
Okay.
that's $25 here and $50 there
Right.
throughout the
Well,
year.
I'm just sort of wondering where you guys
Right.
put that.
Right,
A little bit.
it's a little
You can
bit.
buy a quick office.
Well, it
supplies.
doesn't, we should be clear that the revenue line items are identified by department only to give a sense of where the funds are coming from,
Okay.
where the revenue sources exist. No department owns, so to speak, the revenue that's received by that
Okay.
department. It's all general fund revenues that are, along with the taxes that are paid to the town, distributed out in accordance with the expenditure budget.
Okay.
So.
Any other questions about town manager's budget? Next, finance.
Well, good evening, everyone. The finance department's going to be equally swift this evening. Page 1, you can see there's $50,000 for business licenses, which is approximately what we've been taking in every year. And so we elected not to change that number. And even though it shows up under the finance department, the real work associated with this is done by the assessor's office. And they really are responsible for bringing in this income. So I can't really take any credit for that, even though it shows up there. Then on page 5, we have the finance department's expense budget. And we have small increases there for the salaries. We have a budget for a vacation buyback or vacation payout. And what that is, I've been giving some thought to possibly retiring in fiscal 18, and there probably will be some unused vacation that is paid out when people retire, and that's what that line item is.
We'll have to talk about that.
So if we take that out, will you stay?
We have some small changes there for NEMRIC services and for postage, just expecting a small increase in postage and possibly an increase in NEMRIC's rates. They haven't raised those rates since we started using them for payroll services, so that's what those numbers are, and that's the presentation.
Any other questions or comments? Any questions or comments?
What is that NEMRIC thing?
That is, they process our payroll for us.
Okay. Now, where does the auditor's money come out of? Don't we pay an auditor?
It comes out of a general
Oh, okay.
services account.
And we'll be covering that and the related accounts next week.
Okay.
Any other questions from anybody? Dick?
Yeah, the bank service charges, is that from when people use their credit cards to pay for the different departments where they're paying a fee, whether it's, their taxes or,
They pay the fees, the direct fees associated with those credit cards, but the credit card companies do assess a small amount every month to the town, just for processing credit card transactions.
and that's what that's for?
That's what that
what
is.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Very nice. Next department is the assessor.
Hey, Carol, can you do something about the floor?
I'll jump right on that. I think that's what's going on.
It's in the capital plan.
Put that in the line, put that in the line item.
Parks and Recs is last tonight, so. Hi, Russell.
Good evening. So I think that our income is on page 1.
Oh,
I think John's been generous in allocating $1,800. But I think that's supposed to be collected fines from late personal property schedules. And we used to have miscellaneous, which was our copier can, but it was taken away from us as being too small an item to include, so that's all we have for income. Our expenses start on page 5 and continue on to page 6. You will see a change in the staff salaries. That's because this year we tried doing 4 jobs with 3 people, and it didn't work out well, so we're going back to 4 people, and we're planning to pay 4 people. The difference is about $9,000 a year. I have a line for vacation buyback. There's not very much of that. I don't think there are any substantial changes elsewhere.
What's the grand list line there?
That used to be what we had in there for the cost to have the grand list bound and put in Annette Cappy's office. That's the line that Patrick felt was too small to include, so
Okay.
it's been eliminated.
Eliminated.
But he feels we can still afford to pay for the binding, so.
Okay.
Indeed, we can.
So what is the staffing? And what increase are we seeing?
The staffing is actually returning to what it's been generally since the 70s, which is 4 people, 2 of whom are full-time and 2 are 30, one is 30 hours and 1 is 15. We tried changing it to 3 full-time staff with the assistant assessor doing some clerical work, and it wasn't a good combination.
So we've got another person coming on?
The clerical person has been hired in the part-time role that previously existed, and we're recruiting right now for an assistant assessor to come on at 30 hours a week.
Excellent.
So we're back to the prior model. You'll recall that we had some issues this past summer that resulted from our attempt to save money, and we believe we went a little too far, and we need to adjust this back up. It's only about $10,000 additional expense, but the office will operate in a proper manner that we know will be something that can deliver the product.
That's the largest change that I can see. The other ones are all small ones, such as we know that our software fee does increase each year, and our tax map maintenance fee increases each year. And I felt that an additional allocation for training wasn't appropriate at this time for the same reason we just were talking about.
Dick?
years and years ago, we were talking about cross-training
did the polls close?
employees.
I'm gonna have to run over there. I forgot.
Having people, whatever department they're in, being able to slide over to another department to help out when one department gets busy or somebody's sick, and we can, you know, almost like a substitute for a day. And I don't think we've ever followed up on that, to my knowledge.
Right.
Is that something we should really look into, to have people really cross-trained? I don't think that the jobs are dissimilar. I think that they're probably more similar than, you know,
Right.
obviously with each department there's finite things, but familiarizing more of our employees with what's going on, especially our clerical staff.
Right. So we see a lot of that in field work, in very organized, planned ways where depending on the season of the year, there's people who are assisting other units that are busier at that time of year. Administratively, there's a lot of teamwork that occurs, but it's less cyclical and more dependent on, you know, the activities of a particular week or particular month. and people saying, gee, this project is falling behind, I need a hand, and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of help that departments give to each other within the building. We do think that there's an opportunity to do more of that within the administrative team in an organized way, the way the operating field crews do. And that's one of the things we identified in the comprehensive review of town operations as something that we ought to look at together and identify opportunities for increased collaboration among departments. It's a good point.
Any other questions or comments? All right, the next item is planning. Thank you.
Sorry about the income.
Planning's revenues begin on page 2, and then the expenditures will begin on page 7.
Next time we schedule a special meeting out of the select board meeting room, we need to consider whether the basketball game is going on right upstairs.
Yeah.
Good evening. So, as Peter said, planning's revenues are listed on the top of page 2. The only significant change there is an expected increase in permit fees. We arrived at this increase by looking back over the last 4 or 5 years and averaging out what the actuals were versus the budget. We lowered the permit fees budget line item in the aftermath of the Great Recession, and we have found a different pattern is in play, less permits but of a greater value, and so it's still difficult to predict, but we're hoping that we can obtain that extra income this year. You'll see the expenditures on page 7. There's a slightly different format for the budget this year that includes retirement vacation buyback as a line item. And so if you take that into account and the modest changes in salaries, that accounts for over $7,000 of the $9,900 increase in the expenditures. And apart from that, the only other item of significant change is a 50% increase in professional services from $4,000 to $6,000, an increase of $2,000. And that is associated with services that we expect to use as part of the downtown master plan process. There is no provision here for the match for the recently awarded municipal planning grant, which we expect will come out of FY17.
Looks like you're stealing office supplies from somebody. What's,
we didn't stop by. So, actually,
that's quite a drop, though. I mean,
it's well, yeah. I mean, it reflects the changing nature of our work.
Yeah.
You know, it's basically
all on the.
we receive and send emails,
Yeah.
and so we don't use ballpoint pens very often anymore.
A lot less paper.
Yeah, a lot less paper.
Any other questions about the planning budget? Thank you, Rob. The next budget to be presented is a library budget.
These revenues also begin on page 2, and the expenditures will begin on page 9.
I was
Start.
hoping you were going to wear your outfit.
Pardon?
I was hoping you
Oh.
were. It was very festive.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I do hate to miss a chance to wear it. Sticky fella. Okay, well, thanks for having me. This is my first time, so I'm looking forward to it. The library, as you know, is in a unique position in that we have 2 streams of funding. We have the town revenue, but then we also have the endowment that the Board of Trustees oversees. And I have to say, the Board of Trustees takes their job very seriously. They recognize that they are to be prudent guardians of the endowment so that it will sustain us for generations to come, as it has in generations past. And yet they also realize that they want to really contribute to the town's support of the library to make the institution the very best that it can be. So that being said, I also want to say that I know in past years there's been some there hasn't been as much clarity in what the trustees does and what the trustees do and contribute and through the endowment and the budget that I go through for the town. So we have been working, a number of the trustees, Robert Stack and our board treasurer, Adam Lyons, came and met with Patrick and John and Brenda Breyer, and we're working on a way to consolidate all those funds, and I can show you what that looked like. When I started, we had 40 plus funds that were individual funds that contributed to the endowment or that were donated to the library, and many of them are restricted, so we can only buy books for some, we can only spend some on technology, some can only be used to support fine arts, but we're working on consolidating all of those and bringing them into a system that works in parallel with the town system. So it's all going to become very clear very soon. So to go through our town budget, on the revenues, the library donations, the reason we don't have that anymore is that the fundraising portion of the library has been taken over by the Friends of the Library, so they run an annual campaign that's going on now. So that's why you don't see donations in this year's budget. Reimbursements, mostly that was accounted for by selling prepaid fax cards, which our faxing is going down, or the use of the fax machine. We are the only publicly accessible fax machine in downtown Brattleboro, so we still do a little bit of faxing for people at the library, but by and large, there's nothing happening there. And also the sales of the Colonel Brattle postcards, of which I've sold one since I've been here. So again, it's one of those things that the amount was just too small to include. The postage revenue has gone down partly because we now employ a courier. We used to send books back and forth for interlibrary loan, and then we would gently suggest that people could donate for the cost of the postage, but since we're handling things by courier now, that rarely happens. And then the audiovisual rental has gone from $50 to nothing because we replaced our new projector with grant funds, and so the terms of the grant say that we can't charge people to use it. Okay, moving on to expenses. And nobody's taking any vacation buyback pay from the library. They're all taking vacation. Then you'll see that our conferences and memberships have gone down by 44%, and part of that is that was used to pay for mileage to go to consortium meetings, but now we have changed the meetings to only meet half as often, and we also employ go-to-meeting, so we don't have to actually get in a car and go anywhere. So our computer equipment maintenance is a hefty item of our budget, and that covers both our staff computers, which we rely on, but also our public computers. And so it includes things like the licenses to keep time on the public computers, our software, and our integrated library system, which we could work with. Let's see. So you'll notice there's a big leap in the telephone line on the next page, and that's because we've been having trouble with the phones for the last several years. I spoke to our phone rep, and we have the oldest phones in town. So that means that we have trouble with the quality of hearing. Sometimes phone, calls get cut off, and also we can't replace the phones any longer. They don't make them. So
Are they rotary?
just about. They don't have caller ID or anything like that. It was all
You have
before
to
that.
crank the side of it.
Yeah, actually, we were thinking about doing a STEM program with the kids where we get tin cans and
Yeah.
string and.
Wow.
Anyway, so we are looking to replace all of that. And to serve you guys better. And then our postage expense has also gone down because of the courier system. And you'll note that there is a slight reduction in the general books fund. I want to assure everybody, it's not because we're buying fewer books, we are actually buying more books, but the trustees have stepped in to supplement that budget line, and we've moved some of that difference into the young adult budget and also into the reference source budget. And then also we have eliminated the line for, or we've zeroed out the line for adult programming, but again, the Board of Trustees and the Friends of the Library will help us out with that.
I think it was 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago that hours were cut when there were significant budget gaps. And then last year, the trustees stepped in to reopen either a half day that had been closed or whatever, either all the closed hours or part of the closed hours. The plan is to continue keeping the library open those hours with supplemental funds from the endowment?
Yes, so the trustees were responding to the needs of the community and the desires of the community, and that was our first priority is the accessibility through open hours, and we're always busy, and so we restored Thursday morning and Saturday afternoon, and that's still highly valued by the community. That in the recent survey we conducted, that was the most important thing, is accessibility to the library, being able to get in there. And so the trustees are absolutely committed to keeping the library open as frequently.
Sir, what are we missing now then for hours at this point?
I think my understanding is that the previous hours have been fully restored.
Fully restored?
I just didn't remember if it was fully
No, I
restored or
couldn't
only in
either.
part.
I thought we were still shy a little bit, but.
It's fully restored to the
Right.
hours that existed at the time of that cut.
Yes.
You could probably go back to prior years and there may have been
Would you
more
like to
hours
be
that
open
existed.
more?
I would like to be open more, yes. It would definitely require more staffing, obviously. But I would like to be open more, and the public would like to be open more.
I was just gonna ask, you
Yeah.
feel that there's a need to?
I have heard from several, well, many people actually in the public, that they would really appreciate Sunday hours.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But that's a huge investment staff-wise, so.
Dick?
I'll have this argument with you because I had it with Jerry,
Okey dokey.
and it wouldn't be right to treat him differently than I treat you. We don't charge fees for non-residents to access our computers.
Right. And I believe, but I will check into it, but I believe that's because they are they're supported by the state library. So therefore, anyone within the state should be able to benefit from that.
But you don't check.
If they were like from outside of
Right.
Vermont?
I know that when I'm out of state, when I'm vacationing in Florida, and I go to the library, to use the computer, because I'm a non-resident, I have to pay a hourly rate. And you pay that rate whether you use the whole hour or you use 20 minutes, whatever. But that's the rate. And I have talked before about generating revenue. If we want to do some other things in the library, then we need to possibly find some other sources of revenue to offset the expense. And I always felt that the computers, gets, I would imagine, a very high usage from the public, and I suspect not all are Brattleboro or possibly even state residents. And so, talk to me a little bit about that.
I'd love to. So I will say, I have visited a lot of libraries, and I am very involved in professional associations with libraries. And it is considered best practices to accord people a reciprocal agreement. So, so actually, frankly, I'm surprised to hear about the Florida community that charges for out-of-town people. What we do is we offer someone a computer pass that they can go and check their email, usually is what they need to do, and maybe send a document or something. And then we say, we don't charge, but if you'd like to make a donation. And so we do get small gifts in that regard. As I said, I haven't encountered that anywhere, but then I've never used a public library in Florida. But generally, the prevailing sentiment among the profession is to accord that, because there's not an issue that materials can be lost or damaged or stolen, and if the computer is there and available.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments from anybody on the board? Any of the trustees want to speak to anything related to the library budget? Since I see many of you in attendance. Thanks for coming. Yeah, it's great.
What is the endowment?
The endowment at, well, let's see here.
Do we get a report on the endowment at Select Board? I don't think we do.
No.
We can
don't.
provide that to you.
Right. Why don't I work with my treasurer and we'll come back and do a report.
Just send it every time.
Thank you. Maybe annually, that'd be a good thing.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you, Star.
How was your first one? Not bad, huh?
Right, yeah.
That's pretty easy.
I'll be back.
Good.
All right, the next and final budget presentation for the night is from Parks and Rec.
First of all, good evening and welcome to the Gibson Aiken Center. Second of all, I
Thank you.
apologize for our gymnast upstairs flipping and making all the
Glad
noise.
it's being used.
They're supposed to be there and we're not.
So we'll start there. So I guess the theme has been starting with revenues. So I am on page 3. In fiscal year 17, we're budgeted to bring in $225,000. And this year, for the proposed budget, I'm anticipating our fees to increase by $12,000, which will bring us up to $237,000. I'll go through step by step each of those revenue items and where, and a ballpark picture, excuse the pun, where that money comes from. So if we start with basketball, those are our adult basketball leagues. Each person that plays in the program pays a user fee, and that's this situation. It's $25 for a Brattleboro resident and $50 for a non-resident. Softball field rentals, that is also, that's our softball leagues that pay. Again, that's a per person fee of $25 for a resident, $50 for a non-resident. And then we also charge, we host several tournaments, and we rent the field out $75 per day and $50 in the evening for lights. So that is where the softball field revenue comes from. Swimming pool, that's our daily users of the facility. Snack bar is a percentage of sales. from our contractor who contracts both the skating rink and the swimming pool. Kiwanis Shelter, those are our our daily rentals, which are $75 for a half day, $150 for a full day. And that is rented from the middle of May until the middle of October. Skating rink revenue is our per hour rentals for the Hockey Association, the Figure Skating Club, the high school. And in that situation, we charge $150 for youth hours and $175 an hour for adults. On top of that, a non-resident will pay the youth fee of $15 and the adult fee of $25 if they're a non-resident part of the Hockey Association or the adult leagues that use the facility. The Gibson-Aiken Center is the meals program that rents space down here to serve the congregate meals and Meals on Wheels, Monday through Friday. Day camp is a percentage of our day camp income. It's actually a flat fee, so $55 for every person that registers for day camp goes into this general fund account to help offset the cost of our staffing that we hire in the summertime. Our facility use fees for each youth program, for each youth that signs up for programs, $5 is put into the facility use fee to help offset program costs. Miscellaneous revenue, some of you may remember at this time last year we talked about donations. Instead of charging a per person fee for a lot of the senior activities, we went to a donation program. So that is a combination of donations that come in for the use of senior center programs and rentals at our Brattleboro Common, Planning Park, Plaza Park, a lot of the mini parks. And then cemetery plots, that is sales that we have down at Morningside Cemetery. And the non-resident fee is the $15 and the $25, which comes up to, our projected revenue for FY18 of $237,400. As we move on to revenue, which starts on page 15, this year we are presenting a budget for FY18 $791,964. That is a $5,517 increase, which is a 1% increase. If you were to bring our revenues and expense and talk about that ratio, that is, we bring in 30% revenue to expense. Increases that you'll notice as you go through my budget items, salaries across the board, those are things that I'm unable to control, as those are items within the union contract. Same with the overtime. And the overtime, because I'm kind of unique, not so much as a person, but as a department. And the reason I say that. With that being said, I have, 3 different employee groups that I work with. I have the administrative union, I have the public works union, and then I have non-union employees. So I'm kind of unique that I've got a lot of books to look at when it comes to, contracts and stuff as it relates to the employees. But one thing I would like to point out to you on page 16, and it's under parks. And you'll notice on the overtime line item, it went up from $7,140 to $14,153. Please note the next line went down from $10,845 to $7,324. And the reason for that is it's weekend call pay and overtime. We do not have people on call the entire year, just during our hot times, during the rink season and during the pool season. And it was kind of uneven as to how it was distributed. So between the two of those, there is a slight increase in that area. And the other area that I wanted to point out across the board, all of our seasonal employee accounts went up. As you know, we're dealing with the minimum wage, and as that increases, that we have to keep up with that request. The other thing, I'm highlighting the increases. I want to make sure that I'm highlighting the decreases as well. And the biggest one that I feel like I can dance around with is the Gibson-Aiken Center fuel account. And I have to give Mother Nature some credit. We know last year that she deserves some of the credit, but I don't think she gets all the credit. But we saved $4,750 with the new windows, and that was with the windows that were replaced in the gymnastics room upstairs and the whole first floor. I suspect, I don't know if we'll see an equal amount of savings for this next year, but we did replace all the windows in the second floor gym. So we should see a significant, definitely a savings there, maybe not quite as much as this year, but we're getting our benefit from our windows for sure. They were overdue on being replaced, and now I think the town is reaping the benefit of that. And I think the other thing that's important to point out, the propane account at both the skating rink and parks, between the two of them, is a decrease of $8,500. So in a nutshell, that is where things are at with the Recreation and Parks budget, both expense-wise and income-wise. Happy to entertain questions that you may have.
Anybody on the board have any questions about Parks and Rec?
I have quite a few, actually.
Go for it.
We have a snack bar. What do we do with that revenue, and have we ever thought about putting that out to bid and letting an outside entity run our snack bars wherever we do them, whether it's up at the pool, up at the rink, and possibly having, I don't think the snack bar is open at night when there's softball games. I don't believe it is.
Yep.
But putting that out and just saying, okay, we'll just take the revenue and we won't have to worry about expense.
That's what we do, Dick.
Yeah.
It is,
Yeah,
it
that
is?
Yes, and then on page 3, under snack bar, under the revenues, it's the 4th line item down.
And that's all contracted out?
That's all contracted out. That is for the swimming pool, that is for the skating rink, and that is for Westbrook
So
Park.
who has the contract for that? How come the board is never involved with seeing some sort of bids or putting it out to bid?
I haven't put it out, it hasn't gone out, it's been a roll-over contract where it's percent of sales that come in. I mean, it's certainly something that we can do. There's not a lot of money, when you're talking about, a little bit on a coffee and a little bit on a hot dog and a little bit on, an order of fries, but we certainly can do that.
I think there's a few different ways where you can look at it rather than, you charge this is what the fee is, and whatever they charge, and whatever items that they want to provide, not that we're involved in setting any menus or anything. But I definitely think that's something that I've actually never seen or have heard about in terms of awarded out. I actually thought that we were running it.
No, we haven't. I believe this person that's been running it now has probably been running it for at least 12.
Oh, a long time.
A long time,
Yeah.
Deb Julian as our contractor.
Next one is a swimming pool. And I really have some issues with us closing the pool in the middle of August. We've spent significant money on that swimming pool to have it closed in the middle of August when those kids still haven't gone to school yet. The weather this past year was extremely hot. And it's not only kids that use the pool, it's a lot of residents in Brattleboro. And for the life of me, I don't know why we can't keep that pool open till at least Labor Day. I have heard from a lot of adults that say, God, this is crazy, closing this pool. And I have heard Carol say to me that we can't find lifeguards because all the college kids go back to school. Well, you know, there are other people that are certified that are out there that are lifeguards. And even if we had to somewhat change our hours, but I definitely believe that this board should be supporting keeping this open till after Labor Day. I mean, the amount of money that we have spent on it, to have it open for, what, 7 weeks, 8 weeks, if that, is really, I mean, I might have voted against fixing the pool just because of the length of time that it's open. And I know it's a great asset, but it's a great asset that we deny people actually when there's still significantly warm weather and people can't go swimming because we go, okay, you know, we don't have a lifeguard. That's a poor excuse on our part not to have the pool open. So I would like to hear more from the administration on that. The one thing, Carol, that I talked to you briefly about that I think that could be a revenue generator is the covered bridge. And putting some money into the covered bridge and getting some electrical outlets in there so people could rent the space, and possibly doing some work in the front, but definitely in the rear, to clean that up. And I believe it would be a great rental space. I think somebody got married in there actually last Monday. But there are people that inquire about it. It would be a great spot to rent out, but we don't have any outlets in there, so if people wanted to bring their own temporary lighting, I'm not saying we should put the lighting in there, but if we had outlets in there, if somebody wanted to rent it and rent lights, I think that's a real potential to bring in some probably significant revenue as a rental space for us. And I do have a question, if you could, I haven't heard a whole lot about two things. One, the repair on the pool and how that's going. We've never had an update. And the other thing is, after I left the board went through a real significant process to repair the pool. And what is the status, I mean the skating rink, and what is the status? Is that all cleared up and is that in good standing? And the other thing that I would like you to talk to me a little bit about is that we spend $19,000 a year on summer help, and have we looked at comparing what it would cost us to contract out for a lot of the lawn mowing services that we do during the course of the year at our parks versus temporary help or using our staff, since it's so limited. And those are the ones I'd like you to touch upon.
I think I've taken good notes. If not, you certainly can correct me as I work my way down through them. I'll start at the top. We certainly can, put the snack bar contract out to bid, see, what type of options that we have there. As far as the pool closing in August, that is a direct benefit or direct impact of budget cuts that we had several years ago. And unlike the library, I don't have any, anybody that's coming in and dropping me a bunch of cash and saying, hey. Yes, I get that same complaint, Dick. And I'm like, oh boy, the pool closes Sunday and it's due to be 90 degrees. I totally get where you're coming from.
But you don't come back to the board and say, I'm getting complaints that the pool is closing. This is what it would cost. The decision to keep the pool open is my 4 other colleagues and myself. And if you say it's going to cost $3,000 more, and we will probably bring in, $1,000 of revenue, so it's gonna cost us net out at $2,000. I suspect that this board, I don't wanna speak for them, but might say, you know what, I think Dick's got an idea, something that's viable there to keep the pool open, versus just saying, okay, it's a revenue expense.
Right, so with that being said, Peter and I actually spoke about this early on, once we hit August, because our evening hours are not utilized as much as they are earlier in the year. So we thought one way of gaining another week without increasing the budget that much was to maybe, once we hit August, close at 5 o'clock and then be open those heavy hours of 1 to 5 every afternoon. That was one thought that we had, but I certainly can put together a proposal and let you know, what that would look like.
Carol, just a quick thing, is there a norm around New England about, for community pools when they close? I mean, is there, or is it
The
all over the
same,
place?
pretty much, they would probably stay open that 1 week later, that we are going into September, no. Opening in Memorial Day, yes. So on the front end, yes. On the back end, not so much, because everybody has the same problem, because, as Dick said, there's other people out there that are certified lifeguards. We're not seeing them, they're not coming to us.
Right.
The people that I come to, the applications that come across my desk are high school and college kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I do lose those college kids, and I can't leave the pool operating without a college student in charge. I can't put 16-year-olds. 2 summers ago, I had a complete staff of 16-year-olds and a pool manager, 2 pool managers. You can't leave a pool to be operated with 16-year-olds.
Sounds
If
like
you
chaos.
can only imagine.
Sounds like Animal House.
A little bit. I got a couple after-hours phone calls from the neighbors, So that's a challenge that we all rec and parks experience on the waterfronts, the pools, but on the front end is where a lot of them do open up. It's also getting chillier at night. People don't want to get in. So I think we can gain a week on the back end, because there is 2 weeks that we close before school starts. So I think that'd be one way of doing it. And then maybe look on the front end and see, hey, should we be
Even
open
if
up?
it's weekends on the front end, because kids aren't out of school.
Correct.
And even
And
if you did Labor Day weekend,
Yep.
the 2 weekends till Labor Day. So if you gain a week, and then you have one more weekend, and then you usually catch Labor Day, whatever way the calendar falls.
Carol, before you move on to the next item, I just want to make one general observation for the benefit of the board, make sure we stay on the same page about these kinds of issues. Not specific to the pool, but across the board, another town went through an extended period of looking for savings any place that the town could find them, and went through some particularly significant budget reductions in the time frame of something like about 5 years ago. I don't know the exact timing of that. I want you to know, and I'd like you to tell us if you want us to approach this any differently, that we don't come to you to ask to increase levels of service. In the absence of a policy discussion at some point along the way that's outside of the budget process, where the board has said we really need to do more of X, in which case then at budget time we're going to bring you a proposal for how to accomplish doing more of X and how we think that can be done cost effectively. In the absence of that kind of a discussion, staff isn't going to bring it on ourselves to say, hey, we think we ought to add a couple of weeks to the pool, so here's what that would cost in the proposed budget. Rather, what we struggle to do, frankly, but are doing pretty well at, I think, is keep cost increases to the bare minimum that we can in order to maintain existing levels of service, and try to find savings wherever we can to offset increases. But in a situation like the pool, where there was a direct decision of the board that said to staff, you're going to cut it back in this manner in order to save money, since then the staff approach to preparing the budget each year has been to maintain the adopted level of service in that reduced form and do it as cost effectively as possible. Having said that, on this particular question that you've raised, and any others that the board wishes to have analyzed, we'd be happy to look at what an expansion might look like and how it could be done, and a manner that increases the budget as little as possible while improving the amenity for the community.
Well, I agree that the approach that you've been taking is an appropriate one in terms of working to maintain levels of service in the most cost-effective manner possible. We've actually had, I think every year that I've been on the board, and this is now my 6th, some discussion about whether or not the pool hours should be expanded, because every year somebody's come in and said the pool closes too early. But particularly with respect to Parks and Recreation, this is an area where we're providing very significant subsidy to recreational activities. We bring in about $250,000 in revenue, and we spend, I think it was $750,000 or $800,000. And that means that we're subsidizing recreational programs. That's something that's for the public benefit and for the public good. We've talked about ways that we might reduce the amount of funding that we need to provide to subsidize those programs. But right now, the balance has been reached at this level, and we haven't really found ways to affect cost savings. And each year, it's really been a revenue-type decision. And if a board member wants to raise a question about the possibility of expanding the pool hours, we can certainly look at it as a group, but it wouldn't be the first time, and it certainly won't be the last.
I think the thing that's different about the pool hours is that it's like when the library hours were cut, that's every week, every year, all through the year, and the library's open through the whole, it's not seasonal the way the pool is. The pool's only makes sense when it's hot. And the last couple of weeks in August are typically hot. You can feel a change around Labor Day, but up to that point, it's pretty important. The other thing is that the pool serves significant percentage of low-income kids. And so the subsidies are absolutely appropriate, given that those kids need the resources and they need the activity. It also is the site for the summer meals program, isn't it?
We have 2 sites at Living Memorial.
Right.
We serve the summer meals program up at the Kiwanis Shelter during day camp.
Okay, yeah.
And down at the bottom, out on the playground area, for just anybody that's one of the sites, yes. But during day camp, we run 2 sites.
So it really is, it's a place where kids who really can't afford other services and can't afford other things are likely to gravitate. So it makes sense to make it available for those 2 weeks as well. So I would like to see that, and I'd like us to consider it this year.
Sure. We'll put some information. We're going to have a handful of open items after next week when we finish our first time through the remaining pieces we haven't looked at yet. And so in the January meetings, we'll be bringing back a good bit of information on different topics. We'll be happy to make the pool one of those.
Thank you.
Carol, I'll speak first to the 2 capital projects and then fill in anything that I might leave out. I want to give a quick summary to each of those and then hand it back to you. So on the rink repairs from a couple of years back, there were some continuing issues. We hold our breath a little bit in terms of the relationship between the 2 compressors and the reliability of the 2 compressors. There were some pretty significant issues last year at this time around that. We had a routine maintenance minor repair that was going on, or there was some poor workmanship that caused a significant problem in one of the compressors. We had some real issues to deal with to keep the ice in good condition at the rink. But we're through that. Additional repairs were made, and so far this season's been smooth sailing. They geared up, they made good ice. Both compressors are operating reliably, so for the moment there's no continuing issues at the rink. At the pool, the basic repairs, the part of the job went really well in terms of the repairing the concrete and the extension of the line outside the pool. You'll recall that there was a change order to deal with a bottom drain issue that came up. We ran into some issues related to that. It was
Latent condition?
I'm sorry. Well, it wasn't so much latent conditions in that. Well, there was an element of that. There was a change when there was a boulder there that they had to chip through. You're exactly right. You remember that correctly. There also was just a challenge of, you've got one shot to get that one right, and you got to get all the fittings just right. You got to get the pitch just right, because once you've restored the
No.
concrete at the bottom of the pool, you're not going back in. It's very different than when you're working out in the grassy area. So there were some issues when that first cut of that was inspected, and we actually had some collaboration between the contractor and the public works team, the utilities team, to go in there and work it together to troubleshoot the challenges that we encountered on that job. They worked great together. They resolved that. That piece of the project is now finished. And so everything that needed to get done before the weather got cold got done. They'll be coming back to do the finish up of the concrete and get the pool ready so that we can then do the painting and the other preparations for opening it for season. So we did encounter some issues. We addressed them successfully, and we're now at the place where we expect it to be for the quote-unquote winter break of that project.
Yeah, I think we left it in good shape, and like Peter said, there's minor concrete work to be done, there's painting, they have to, paint in the lane lines and the targets, and feather it out 1 foot, and then we'll take it from there. And then there is a saw cut that has to happen below the skimmer all the way around. And then they will be back on site in April with us painting in May, and we should have no problem with opening on time in June. So I just wanted to mention, I try to keep you up to date on that stuff, and I try to put that stuff in the monthly report. So I don't know, just want to mention that as I worked on different projects there. And the skating rink is doing awesome this year, so, which is always, this cold weather is great too, because then the compressors aren't running as much. As far as contracting out the parks, that has been a come and go question over the years. We have looked into it. It's not, we can look into it again, by all means. The benefit that we have we would be paying way more than what the last quote I got probably was 3-4 years ago now. We'd be paying more and getting less, because when I say that, right now I'm able to have those seasonal staff go out and maintain the parks and all, but at the same time, when the trash needs to be picked up, they can pick the trash up. And when they've got to clean the bathrooms, so we clean the bathrooms. I would lose all of that when I need to get ready and when I need staffing for special events. Those are the people that we have to rely on heavily in the summertime. We would not have that opportunity if we were to. I believe we get a big bang for our buck at the 19,000, but I'd be happy if that is the directive of the board to go.
Last time we talked about this, you mentioned a lot of the overlapping use of the staff.
Yes.
As a real advantage to having
Yes.
that resource.
And I think the one thing I missed as I was looking through my note here, the covered bridge. I think it's a great idea if that's the direction that, the board would like me to go in. We can figure out what it would take, because I think there's a few minor things that we would need to do. It might cost a little bit of money, and then we could talk about, having that as a rental spot, providing, but I think we would first really need to see what's it going to cost us to do that. But I think it's a great idea, as I said the other day.
Anything else about Parks and Rec?
One thing I'd noticed that, and I think you spoke to this before, we moved the second phase, the bathhouse phase, back a year because of the overrun on, okay, I remember correctly, thank you.
For that, and in the hope that we might raise some money as well to help defray some portion of the project. We know you're quite right about the largest group of customers served there are not in a position to make donations towards the project, and that's important for us to understand about the value of the pool to the community. But there are people who use it who could potentially provide some funds the way that West River Park participants have provided funding for various amenities out there, that sort of thing. So we hope to accomplish some of that before we come back.
And funding for the park itself out there.
Right, exactly.
Dick?
We're going to talk capital.
Sure.
There's, you have $30,000 for paving out in the back of the building here?
No, I have 30,000 for windows.
Where did I see
Rate
paving?
50,000.
50,000 for out in the back here.
Right.
Yep.
I was out there a week ago. I came in the back entrance, even tonight, there's a water spot right in front of the door. Is that because there was a patch that was put in there one time and the patch was too high? And somebody, it looks like it's been scarified down so you could open the door?
Yeah, last winter, we had so much heaving, we couldn't get that back door open. And so we had to grind down so we could actually, yes, get out that door. There has been a lot of patch jobs out there. There's been times where we had to cut across the parking lot to get access for electric into the adjacent parking lot. So over the years, it's had, some rough spells. The big thing to do, if you come back here in another month, it's really uneven. It's really, because the frost heaving that goes on back there makes it become a real liability and a safety concern. We've got a lot of users of the facility, a lot of users that come in the back door are users of this space down here. And, it's just, being mindful of all that, just that it's uneven out there right now in many areas. We've had drainage issues, we have slope issues, numerous things that have.
Drainage and slope contribute to the buckling.
Yes, exactly. So we've met, Patrick and I have met down there with Stevens and Associates and taking a look at the best options of moving forward. And at this point, that seemed to be the most cost-effective option to move forward at this time.
We own the parking lot next door.
Yeah.
That's it here too.
Wouldn't it behoove us, one is an enterprise fund, I understand that, but doing something, if we do this parking lot, doing them on a combined bid where we could possibly get better pricing and then maybe lower the cost of what would be done in this lot because we would be expanding the area of what we would be resurfacing. Do you think of that, or is it
Potentially.
non-starter, or?
It's a lot more territory, as you know, if you compare the square footage of the two lots. And that lot is going to need some attention, but within the parking fund, it's not the highest priority. So
When I look at all the parking lots in town, to be honest with you, this parking lot out here is no different than the Harmony lot.
Right.
Which is in really tough shape.
Which is why we want to do work there.
But I understand that.
Yep.
But when I'm looking at the lots, all of our lots are pretty much in the same state. Some are maybe, C+, but I don't think we have any A or B lots.
We agree.
And so looking at this and spending, $50,000 here, that's a significant amount of
Well,
money.
$50,000 doesn't seem like as far as paving goes, to me, that seems like we're just doing some patching, and I know the price of paving, and that seems like, I would almost rather wait until it gets even worse and then do a serious, cleanup out there and try to get rid of some of the frost seeds, because $50,000 doesn't go far at all.
I want to avoid getting into a discussion of how we're going to do repaving of the, that's within the parking fund. If we're, want to consider whether some efficiencies could be gained by combining the lot back out here with the Gibson Aiken lot. That's something that administration can look at and report back on. But I don't want to have a lengthy discussion tonight about the parking fund.
We'll take a look at that, and when we come back to review the closure, answers to the questions, and then the decisions that you'll need to make in January regarding the capital program, we'll have more information about that.
Anything else about capital or operating for Parks and Rec?
Thank you.
Anything else about any of the budgets that have been presented for discussion? Peter, what's left, please? In terms of budgets.
That's it for this evening. What we are proposing, subject to when you and Kate look at the agenda and make a decision about what will actually be on for budget and for all the other topics for next week, we'd like to wrap up the first time through. So that's going to be probably 8 or 10 different topics that are, some of which will just be like tonight, a few minutes, others of which will take more time. It's all the catch-all. So the municipal center costs are in there, the regional costs are in there, we talked tonight about, there's the general services that has quite a few different things. Employee benefits is a section unto itself. So there's 8 or 10 of those that are the remaining sections of the budget that we've not yet looked at together while we've been looking department by department. We'd like to cover the rest of those next week and then come back to the January, use the January Tuesdays to address the open questions. So right now I've got a list of the things that have come up tonight and at the prior meetings. Next week we can review what those are, make sure that you agree that that's the comprehensive list of things that we need to come back to. And then for those items and the capital program and the fund balance decision that needs to be made, we can address that at the regular meetings and if necessary at a special meeting in January.
Everybody okay with that approach to the budget going forward? Is there any other business that we're going to take care of in public session?
There isn't, if I might note, we do need an executive session regarding contracts in addition to the deliberative session that is shown on the agenda. And we've received a blessing previously from Bob Fisher, who's here tonight and can rise and stop me if I'm phrasing this wrong. But I think it's appropriate for you as this public session closes to announce your intent to do both of those things, and then we'll properly document coming out of those when the meeting ended and that no decisions were made.
Okay, that's fair to say. So I move to enter deliberative session to discuss our decision on the Bittersweet Lane application. And I invite the town attorney and town manager into that deliberative session. And I move to enter executive session to discuss contracts where general premature knowledge would place the municipality, people involved, and the select board at a substantial disadvantage. And I invite into that executive session the town manager. All those in favor, please say aye.
Actually,
Aye.
I'm sorry, could we invite into the executive session also the town attorney?
And the town attorney into
Thank
the
you.
executive session as well. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Everybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. There won't be any decisions made in executive or deliberative session. Well, there might be in deliberative, but not in executive session. And we will come back out of the meeting, but there'll be nothing to announce other than our adjournment. So, good night to anybody who's been watching. Thanks, everybody, for attending.